News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
We talk news. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
506 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to you, friends. You know, there's so many conservatives out there, and I do get it. I understand. It's like low-hanging fruit when you have the president wandering off the stage, short of wandering off the stage, having to be led by Jill Biden after his big speech over the weekend. But one of the things that I find fascinating, and I went ahead and I tweeted this out at Dan Mandis Show, what happened over the weekend, I think it was on Friday, Joe Biden gave this big speech, and it was 33 minutes. We previewed this story, by the way, on Friday morning, where Biden was going to make Donald Trump the focal point of his big speech, kicking off the campaign for 2024. And that is exactly what Joe Biden did. Now, at the end of the speech, and again, I tweeted it out, Biden ends the speech, and then he kind of is waiting around for Jill Biden to literally lead him off the stage. And so once she comes out, they hug, and she takes his hand and she literally leads him off the stage. And so there's a lot of conservatives who are making hay about that, and I do understand that. Again, it's low-hanging fruit, but here's my thing. If that's really what you're concerned about, well, then you're not really paying attention, because Joe Biden spent, I kid you not, the entire speech was like 32 minutes long. He did not say one thing, not one thing, about his first 3 years in office. It was all about Donald Trump. It's almost like not only did the president forget how to leave the stage, he's forgotten the first 3 years of his first term. Here's part of what he had to say. John, I need some audio, please.
Today, we're here to answer the most important of questions. Is democracy still America's sacred cause? I mean it. This is not rhetorical, academic, or hypothetical. Whether democracy is still America's sacred cause is the most urgent question of our time. And it's what the 2024 election is all about.
And what follows, I kid you not, friends, what follows is 32 minutes of Joe Biden. And all he is doing is talking about Donald Trump over and over again. And I would say, in response to that comment, that Joe Biden desperately does want the election to be about Donald Trump. But in reality, it won't be. You see, they are desperate to frame this as Donald Trump being obsessed with the past. And while that may be true, really it is Joe Biden and the Democrats who are obsessed with the past.
The choice is clear. Donald Trump's campaign is about him, not America, not you. Donald Trump's campaign is obsessed with the past, not the future. He's willing to sacrifice our democracy, put himself in power. Our campaign is different.
No, actually, your campaign is not different. I don't get it, but then I do. But Donald Trump, when you heard Joe Biden just say Donald Trump is, quote, willing to put himself in power. What does that even mean? Put himself in power. Donald Trump is going through a primary campaign just like any other presidential hopeful. And by the way, he's beating handily two very popular former governors in Ron DeSantis, current governor, and Nikki Haley, former governor. Now, both are very formidable politicians. I don't care what you think about them. They are both very good politicians. So Donald Trump isn't, as Joe Biden says, quote, putting himself in power. So I'm not exactly certain what Joe Biden means by that, but obviously Biden simply cannot run on his own record, and that's the whole point. The whole point is Joe Biden cannot run on his record, so he's demonizing Donald Trump. Because when I say, and I tweeted it out at Dan Mandis Show, the entire speech by Joe Biden, if you want to check it out, feel free. But I love how he says that Donald Trump's campaign is all about him. Well, Trump is running on his record. Joe Biden simply cannot do the same.
And our campaign is about preserving and strengthening our American democracy.
Right. Interesting comment to considering Democrats are actively trying to keep Donald Trump off of the ballot. And also, of course, everyone knows that Joe Biden is also, along with Alejandro Mayorkas, they are importing millions of illegal future voters for the Democrat Party.
And our campaign is about preserving and strengthening our American democracy.
Well, when you say our, do you mean the Democrat parties? Because that's obviously what they're trying to do. And so, again, it basically, and this is the launch of Joe Biden's campaign for 2024. And this is really a preview as to what is going on and what is next. And what is going to follow from today all the way to November is the demonizing of Donald Trump and Joe Biden not taking any responsibility, no accountability whatsoever for his issues. Joe Biden not taking any accountability for his issues whatsoever.
We all know who Donald Trump is. The question we have to answer is, who are we? That's what's at stake. Who are we? In the year ahead, as you talk to your family and friends, cast your ballots. The power is in your hands. After all we've been through in our history, from independence to civil war to 2 world wars to a pandemic to insurrection, I refuse to believe that in 2024 we Americans will choose to walk away from what's made us the greatest nation in the history of the world. Freedom, liberty, democracy is still a sacred cause.
You know, I kind of like how it is clear that, because I don't know how big that crowd was, but it does kind of sound like a golf clap, does it not? And so the problem that Biden has is that he knows, and America knows, the vast majority within his own party want someone else. What is it? The last time I saw it was like 70%. 70% of the Democrat Party wants someone else to run other than Joe Biden. And so to me, the speech, and people are calling this a major speech. Well, he really roasted Donald Trump. Really? You see, because I think that what Biden said about Donald Trump, I feel like it really didn't land. It didn't land at all. And I think what it showed is that Joe Biden has nothing new. I mean, this is reminiscent of the campaign for 2020, when all he talked about was, Charlottesville. And for the Biden administration, what this really does is this says a lot more. I mean, this goes back to grade school. This says a lot more about Joe Biden than it does about Donald Trump, doesn't it? But here's the great thing. Donald Trump responded over the weekend to Joe Biden's attacks, and I've got that audio for you straight ahead. It is 5:15. Time to check the roads from the Paul Winkler Investment WTN Traffic Center. Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Jack. Increasing clouds, rain by this afternoon, and a high of 52. Appreciate you listening to Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So I just played you some of the more relevant audio from Joe Biden's big speech on Friday. Now, here's the funny thing. The funny thing, and it was the 3-year anniversary of January 6th. Over the weekend, and you had all of these people in the media. I'm going to start just basically calling them narrative peddlers, and they were, as Joe Biden said, oh, Donald Trump is obsessed with the past. Well, really, who is obsessed with the past would be the media, narrative peddlers, and Joe Biden and the Democrats. But anyway, I just played you all of that audio, and you can find Joe Biden's entire speech on Dan Mandis' show Facebook page, and also I tweeted it out. But again, my overriding point is going to be 2 things. Number one is that a lot of conservatives are making a very big deal about the fact that Biden had to be, led off of the stage by Jill, and everybody's tweeting out the final, 20 seconds of that speech, along with Joe Biden leading him off stage. I'm more concerned with that 32 minutes of complete, absolute, and utter BS And you know who also understands that is Donald Trump. He responded, and this is the president, former president, his response to Joe Biden.
I mean, we have a man, he can't put two sentences together. He can't speak. He can't, although yesterday he tried to play tough guy. You know, I'm a threat to democracy. He's a threat to democracy because he's incompetent. I mean, he's incompetent. And a lot of people said, you know, that's going to be their theme, that I'm a threat to democracy. I mean, they're screwing with our elections. They're doing things that nobody's ever done before in terms of weaponization with DOJ, with FBI. I got indicted more than Al Capone.
All right, so that is part of what the former president said. And, you know, when it comes to responding to Joe Biden, it's actually a pretty easy response, isn't it? Isn't it an easy response when all the current president can talk about is the former president, even though Biden says it is the former president who is obsessed with the past? And by the way, I'm not going to deny that Donald Trump is obsessed with the past. And a lot of other people are obsessed with the past as well. I do understand that. And if there's anyone that should be obsessed with the past, quite frankly, it is Donald Trump. But I'm obsessed with the last 3 years because, to me, that is more indicative of what needs to happen in the election of 2024. Here's more from the response of Donald Trump.
It came out loud and clear. You know, they can't talk about anything else. He can't talk about because he's got no achievements. What does he have? He's got the worst border in history. He has a terrible economy that's inflation-ridden, that if you take off inflation, the economy is a disaster. You deduct inflation. And I think you can say this, and a lot of people are saying it, the only reason the stock market's good is people think I'm going to win because I'm leading in all the polls.
All right, so, I mean, that's up for debate, I guess. But bottom line on what Trump says is absolute truth, which is he's got nothing to run on. Joe Biden has nothing to run on. And so this is going to be really interesting. Coming up, I actually thought it was a fascinating, I paused to call this an interview, but you have James Clyburn out of South Carolina. And you'll recall in South Carolina, it was a very big deal where during the primary of 2020, Joe Biden was not doing well. Then Clyburn came out, and what he did was he activated, you know, the black vote, put that in air quotes, whatever. But he activated the black vote in South Carolina in the primary and really launched Joe Biden. Now, recall last week that you had Charlemagne there, and he has been talking about, and I'm not going to go backwards too much, but Charlemagne is talking about how he regrets his Biden-Harris support. Well, Jim Clyburn was on with Jake Tapper, and they talked about the black vote and how it pertains to Joe Biden. I'm going to play some of this audio for you coming up, because part of what I think is really interesting about this is that Clyburn is still trying to defend Joe Biden, even though Clyburn himself admits that he does have some concerns about Joe Biden. Here is one piece of audio, and then I'll play the rest of it for you coming up in the 6 o'clock hour. But this is an interview that made a lot of headlines.
Of Charlottesville ties him to what happened at Mother Emanuel. Donald Trump.
Now, what he's talking about, and by the way, I don't know if Clyburn is going by way of Biden as far as, you know, showing signs of age, but this was not a really effective interview. And so what he's trying to do is he's trying to tie Donald Trump with that horrific murder at First Emmanuel Church in South Carolina way back when, in 2017, I believe it was. No, 2015. Now, 9 people were killed, and I don't know if you remember this, but this was a horrible shooting. Guy walks into the basement of the church and starts just shooting. It killed 9 people. White guy killed 9 black folks, and this was in June of 2015. And what Clyburn is basically trying to do is he's trying to tie Donald Trump to those shootings. I mean, you want to talk about a stretch, but listen to how he tries to justify this.
Of Charlottesville ties him to what happened at Mother Emanuel. Donald Trump looked at those people in Charlottesville and said that there were good people on both sides.
This is where we all just sort of collectively groan and eye roll.
And those people were uttering things like, Jews will not replace us. That is a religion. The AME Church, Emmanuel, that is religion. And Donald Trump has said things in support of those activities that ties him closely to what happened at Mother Emanuel.
So here's what I don't get. So Clyburn is trying to tie Donald Trump to the shootings. Well, those shootings happened in 2015. He's using Charlottesville as that thread to thread Donald Trump to what happened in South Carolina in the shooting in 2015. Donald Trump made those comments in 2017, 2 years after that shooting. So how do you possibly say, oh, yeah, you can tie Donald Trump to the shootings in 2015 because of the comments he made in 2017? How exactly does that work? Clyburn has absolutely no idea what he's talking about, and Jake Tapper didn't call him on it. Didn't say, well, that's kind of a stretch because when the shooting in South Carolina happened, Donald Trump hadn't even decided, if I'm not mistaken, I don't even think he decided to run for president at that point. So the whole thing just doesn't make a lot of sense. And that's not the only thing that Clyburn said that didn't make a lot of sense. Details coming up, 522. Ken Weaver, what's coming up in the news at 5:30?
Storms are rolling in, Brother Dan. There are still December 9th tornado victims with tarps covering a part of their homes. How are they going to manage? A Nashville firefighter hurt overnight battling a house fire, and we've hit the 3-month mark since Hamas murdered Israelis in their sleep, leading to the war in Gaza. Ukrainian soldiers not holding up well against Russia. These stories and more at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, Ken. I want to tell you about my friends at Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. Winter, of course, is here. Now, we never really know what's going to happen in the wintertime. Heck, we really don't know what's going to happen with weather here in Middle Tennessee. But my friends at Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling can make sure that your HVAC continues to work. Now, you become a Beehive member. You ensure that you are running at peak efficiency for maximum comfort. Now, here in the middle of winter, if your heater does break down, Beehive members do get front-of-the-line service. So when hundreds of homes are without heat, you are going to get serviced first. Becoming a Beehive member also means that you get not one, not two, but 3 thorough maintenance services a year, including plumbing, plus no overtime charges 24/7 and 10% off of all repairs. For satisfaction guaranteed, call my friends at Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. As always, tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out. That phone number is 615-775-7833, 615-775-7833. Find them online, busybeehvac.com.
Hey folks, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the things I've been hearing a lot from people lately is the concern about the dollar crashing. And you'll see this out there on the internet all over the place, articles written about it. And the idea is that the Russian and Chinese, those countries are looking at getting together and creating their own currency that will compete against the US dollar as a reserve currency. Now, for many, many decades, there have been other currencies that have been trying to vie for that status. And there's a possibility that you're going to have some that are going to encroach on that a little bit. But is it that big of a thing to worry about? Well, number one, last year, the Chinese currency made up very little of any kind of world trade, number one. But what is it that's really going on underneath the surface? A lot of it is trying to sell you newsletters and investments that you probably ought to stay away from. For example, one of the things I see is, well, you ought to buy gold because the dollar's going to crash. And you see all of these commercials out there, and I say, well, wait a minute, wait. They're trying to get you to buy gold with your what? They're looking to take your dollars. If they really believe what they're saying, why would they take your dollars for their gold? Number one. Number two, how do you protect yourself against these valuation changes in various currencies? Well, let me explain it this way. Let's say that you had a currency called the clam. Okay, and you had a country that had one clam and you could exchange it for $1 at any one point in time. Let's say that that's the case. And you had a widget that was sold by this country and you could buy that widget in that country for 1 clam. So you take your $1, you exchange it for a clam, and then you got your widget. Now, what if the dollar weakens? Well, what happens now, this clam is the same, right? Nothing different here. It's the same deal. But instead of $1, now it takes $2 to get the clam. Now, what happened? Your widget just doubled in price from your perspective as an American. Well, how do we use this to our advantage? As an investor, we want to make sure that we don't just myopically only focus on U.S. stocks. And that's a big mistake investors made from 2000 through 2010 and other periods in history, in the 1970s, the late 1980s, and so on and so forth. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we have good international diversification, because if the dollar weakens, then those international investments go up in value. So it's very, very important to know how globally diversified you really are as an investor. You want to learn more? Call us up for a free 15-minute consultation at paulwinkler.com, and we'll walk you through what we do and see if we can be of help to you, the investor out there that is so often being sold things that they really don't need to be buying.
.30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories this Monday morning. We've got storms rolling this way. We're talking heavy rain, strong winds as the main threats. A wind advisory is going to go into effect at 6 tonight. We're talking about gusts over 50 miles per hour. Got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Yeah, this storm threat comes with people living with damage to their homes from the December 9th tornado outbreak. Channel 4 talked to a woman who still has tarps protecting exposed portions of her home.
The tarp may not make it. I think the roof is okay. I think he covered that pretty good. But it's a pretty big piece of tarp.
Yeah, well, prayers for her. Right now in Nashville, firefighters still on the scene of a house fire. Channel 4's Joyland Bukovac is too.
5 people live here, and they were all able to make it out okay. And there was one firefighter who actually was taken to the hospital to be treated for injuries. He's being checked out due to heat-related injuries, according to the Nashville fire chief.
This is happening in Sylvan Park, which is West Nashville. Elsewhere in Tennessee, we've learned that a 5-year-old died in a house fire in Cumberland County. Israel-Hamas war. The Israel-Hamas war hits the 3-month mark. Israeli government spokesman Ilan Levy telling reporters the IDF has significantly degraded Hamas's terror structure and completely dismantled Hamas in northern Gaza.
We've also successfully targeted and eliminated senior Hamas military leadership, killing at least 8,000 Hamas terrorists in targeted strikes, and of course injuring many more than reflected in that 8,000 count. We've killed, at the last count I've seen, half of Hamas's battalion commanders.
In the other war, the number of Ukrainian soldiers wounded in fighting Russia has increased significantly in recent weeks. The news comes amid increasing signs that the Russian military has retaken the initiative in that war. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
5:36 Nashville's morning news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Time for the gang of three amigos. Johnny's here. Good morning, Johnny.
Good morning, Dan.
Ken Weaver, the bearded wonder. Good morning, Ken.
Oh, yes, boys. Yes, good morning.
You guys, there's so many things in the news. First of all, Johnny, is my camera all right?
Well, the camera's all right.
Yeah, the camera's okay.
All right, very good.
No, it probably could be moved down a shade.
That I you know what, I would. Okay, so here's what's happening with me with these stupid cameras. I'm becoming like a 13-year-old girl.
I starting to primp in the camera.
Where it's like, if the angle's not exactly right and my chin doesn't look exactly as chiseled as I believe that it should look,
your day is ruined.
My day is ruined.
At least you don't have egg in your beard.
No, there is that.
Perfect.
Maybe a little Pop-Tart.
There you go.
Little Pop-Tart in the beard.
Little Pop. Did anybody have it? So if you'd like to see the radio show in its infinite wisdom, you can. It's on Super Talk 99.7, WTN.com, YouTube, Facebook, so on and so forth.
And Twitch.
And Twitch.
Which we ought to rename the TV that. It's very good at Twitch.
That's called Twitch.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
That's Twitch TV.
It's Twitch.
You know, we could name Super Talk TV Seize TV because it seizes up all the time.
Yes, it does.
Anyway, moving on from there. So
it makes my day wonderful.
Did you guys know that, do you remember way back when Donald Trump, his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, it kept getting destroyed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now there is, believe it or not, it's still there.
It survived.
It survived several assassination attempts, the star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, Donald Trump's. And now there's a petition to get his name removed, his star removed from the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Of course there is.
Now, if I'm Donald Trump, now he got it in 2007. And he got it, I'm assuming, because of The Apprentice and all of those other things that he did.
Yeah, that's a great show for a while.
Do you know, I never watched it. I have not seen
either.
one episode of The Apprentice.
Ah, man, I really loved it. I loved The Apprentice.
Well, here's the thing. If I'm Donald Trump, I would demand that his star be taken off of the Hollywood Walk of Fame. See, that's what I would do if I'm Donald Trump.
Then they leave it on. Just play reverse psychology with everybody.
That's exactly right. Just leave it on and let him complain. So,
and then get guards for it.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's the thing. I think, and again, this goes back to the original monologue that I did this morning. I think that their actions trying to take Donald Trump's star off the Hollywood Walk of Fame really does say more about them than it does about Donald Trump. Because all of them, they're in Hollywood, of course, infused with a Trump derangement syndrome. And so, I don't know, I thought it was interesting. I was shocked that it was still there. Like, that's my 2 cents on this whole thing.
Yeah.
So, number one, again, if I'm Donald Trump, if I were him, I would pay for it to be removed.
I got to be honest. I didn't know he had a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
You didn't?
No.
I didn't either. I forgot.
I had forgotten. The only reason that I knew that he had one is because, they kept trying to destroy the darn thing. And they actually did. Remember the guy with the sledgehammer?
Yes, I do remember.
And he walks up and he just starts slamming the thing with a sledgehammer.
Yeah. That guy. Wonder where he's at today.
Yeah. Well, that solved everything, didn't it?
It wasn't.
Boy, it sure did. I forget the guy's
Meathead.
name. I forget the guy's name, and I don't even care because there have been several of
Probably
them.
Robert De Niro.
It's exactly
or
right.
Alyssa Milano.
Are you talking to me?
Are you talking to me?
Is he talking to me?
I saw a great Adam Sandler movie over the weekend.
Let's hear about it, Brother Dan.
Click.
Yes.
Oh,
You
the
guys
one
seen
with the
Click?
remote.
I've seen Click, yes.
With the remote, I had never seen that.
Really?
No, believe it, I've never seen that, and this is, I'm going to give it 2 thumbs up.
Okay.
Because I thought it was really good, and
I saw it, but I can't remember a lot of it. I know it stops time or something.
He can fast forward through things that he finds unpleasant.
Oh my goodness!
So
we
in
need
other
one of
words, like
those.
fights with his wife, or if he's sick or whatever, he can fast forward through it.
Awesome.
But then there are negative ramifications to the fast forwarding through it. There are days I wish I could fast forward through 5 to 9.
I was going to say I'd like to fast forward to about 11:35 on Friday if I could.
That's exactly right. So, but it really good. And here's how I knew that was a good movie. You ready?
I'm ready.
I didn't fall asleep.
Ah, there you go, brother.
I watched the Dave Chappelle thing over the weekend.
Oh, I forgot
Yeah,
to
I
do
did
that.
too.
Did you watch that, Johnny?
I did.
Okay, so I'll give my opinion, and then you can get. Now, I'm a big Dave Chappelle fan.
Yeah.
And I had never heard of him up until a few years ago. Then I got caught up on everything. I thought this had some great moments, but it didn't not live up to his past performances. What say you?
I would agree.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, I quit watching it after a while.
Did you really? See, I fell asleep.
Yeah, I lost interest.
Amy kept, giving me the old, elbow.
Yeah.
Telling me to wake up.
Wake up.
Come on, man. It was like 7 o'clock and I'm falling asleep.
Wake up, old man. Time for your soup.
That's exactly right.
Here's your slippers.
Here's your oatmeal.
Open wide. Yay.
But anyway, I didn't think it was.
Wait, there was a glimpse into the future.
Ken, you want to keep going?
You go ahead, Brother Dan.
All right.
It's going to happen to all of us.
Yes, it will.
See, but what's going to happen to me is it'll be in my beard and nobody will clean it.
They'll just make fun of it.
They will.
They'll laugh. Oh, look at Dad's beard.
Look at Dad over there.
Okay, now can I ask a question? Because I was with a big bearded fellow a while ago, very similar to yours, actually, Ken.
Yes.
And he actually, I mean, you're joking about having things in your beard.
Oh, it happens.
He had some things in it, like he literally had a couple of things in his beard.
He had groceries in his beard.
And so
Goodness, did he not know it?
No.
Oh.
So what is the protocol? Because
Dude, you got something in your beard.
I don't want to
tell him.
Well, here's the thing. Like I was I don't want to say too much because he might be listening. He was a listener.
Yeah.
And he approached me at a place. And he did. He had like some stuff in his beard. And I don't know what the protocol is. Do I just like start picking it out of his beard? Because that's what I wanted to do. It was right there.
Get you a little pin. And
Ken, if you've ever got something in your beard, does it break our friendly protocol to just pick it out? Is that?
No, just tell me about it.
Yes.
Just okay, so don't
Weaver,
grab
you
it
got something in your beard.
Don't grab it myself.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't want to do that.
No, you wouldn't want to.
You don't know how old that is.
Yeah, and where it's been.
Yeah, you might catch something.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you ever have something in your beard, Ken, I'll be sure and say,
you
hey,
let
Ken.
me know, Brother Dan Mandis.
Say, please, Ken, you've got something in your beard. And then after that.
Is it like touching a cowboy's hat? You never touch a cowboy's hat or a man's beard.
That's right, or his boots.
Or his boots. Well, this dude had like 2 things in his beard, like 2 or 3, and I'm trying not to look at it.
What color beard? White beard or dark beard?
It was like a lighter beard, not as white as yours, but definitely I could see the stuff in there.
Chili?
I swear to God, I thought they were moving, actually.
Oh, well, that's even worse.
Goodness.
It's alive.
I didn't, see, here's the thing. I feel bad because he probably then went to the bathroom and noticed he had things in his beard and wondered if people were noticing that he had things in his beard.
Yeah.
Probably.
Right?
Probably.
Yeah. It's just like when you're walking around and, you realize you got something hanging out of your nose or like spinach in your teeth. And it's like, why didn't you tell me?
See, I've had the nose thing and nobody tell me. It's like, come on,
That's
man.
exactly right, Johnny.
Tell me something.
You know, that when
Save
Amy
me.
and I first met, one of the first things we joked about was, all right, so if I've ever got like a hanger or something in the teeth, you have permission to tell me.
A hanger.
You got a hanger.
Isn't that what they...
I like that.
Isn't that what they...
I'm going to use that, Brother Dan Mandis.
Okay.
Hey,
Very
man,
good.
You got a hanger, man.
All right.
Hey, brother.
So Ken, just note if you ever have something hanging in that beard of yours.
You let me know, Brother Dan Mandis, because I do want to know.
Okay.
I mean, I'm very meticulous about washing my beard when
All
I
right.
eat, especially in the morning. See, I eat eggs.
Yeah.
And I've got to be very careful with the yolk. You don't want yolk getting in your beard.
That's no yoke.
Yeah. You got that right, Brother Johnny B.
Isn't there a big football game or something tonight?
I don't know. Let's call Mac and find out.
Yeah, we should. We should call him.
He's either at that clinic or maybe he's got a thermometer.
Or he's in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Got everybody on standby.
But you know what? What's interesting, Generation Z, This came out of USA Today, a reporter there.
Let's hear it, Brother John.
He says Generation Z doesn't care about sports. Said majority of them are not into sports, and he said it's a bigger problem. He said it's not only just sports. He said they don't even know who the name of their neighbor. He said they don't for a generation that is all about getting on social media. They do very little interaction with other people.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's because all their interaction is done online.
Right, behind a keyboard.
Yeah.
But apparently, Generation Z is not into football.
Football.
Well, that's why I believe, and that, John, it's a great topic to bring up. There's a lot of people that say this is why the NFL is trying to incorporate so much Taylor Swift into their storyline.
Trying to get those younger viewers.
Trying to get those younger people.
Those Zers.
Yeah.
Although I don't know if the Taylor Swift audience is the right audience to dig football.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Swift.
And I say that as a guy who likes Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Now, as far as, okay, now let's ask a question.
Okay.
Who knows the name of their neighbors? Ken, do you know the name of your neighbors?
Yep. I do. I met a new neighbor yesterday.
Johnny?
Yes, I know both my neighbors.
So anyway.
How about you, Brother Dan?
Yeah,
what? I couldn't hear you.
Your neighbors?
My headphones are cutting out. I know my neighbor to my right.
Okay.
An old guy named Brooks.
Oh, you're excluding the left.
Oh, the left
darn
one.
right I am.
The one on the left. Oh, you're on the left. I can't meet you.
That's exactly right. I think they're mad at me.
Why?
So there's Brooks on my right, and I love Brooks. He's like 80.
Yeah.
And that dude, I mean, he walks 50,000 miles a day. It is incredible.
That's you got to keep moving, man.
My neighbor on the left, if you're facing my house, my neighbor on the left, I think he's mad at me because we had these moles, and we had a mole guy come out, and he said, well, the secret to moles, you can't really kill them.
So you just move them to your neighbor's yard.
You can push them over to the neighbor's yard.
And then they'll call me, and I'll get money for that, too.
So that's what I did. I pointed them over there. And I think that was years ago, and I think he's still mad at me. Because you could actually see the dead molehills in my yard.
Yeah.
And then you can see the fresh ones in his yard. And I just sort of,
Boy.
I'm not going to say that I chuckled, but,
Did you give it that that you give?
Better his yard than mine. Listen, all's fair in love, war, and moles.
Well, he used to have a neighbor that we couldn't stand, and she couldn't stand this dog that one of the neighbors had. Turk. Turk was huge, and we loved Turk.
Oh, Turk.
But I looked over, and Turk had found a mole, and he was digging for him. All I saw was Turk's tail and his butt inside the ground, just digging up dirt, and the tail just going 90.
Oh, yeah.
Getting after that mole.
And he got him.
Yeah. See, there.
Of course, made her day.
Brother Dan, get Bandit out there on them moles.
Oh, yeah. Bandit, he's useless. Stupid dog. Anyway.
Dan, I found something in the ground. It scared me.
You know what? In fairness, I don't think my neighbor to the left knows my name either. So there is that too. And we actually, it's kind of funny because we've had conversations, but I live in fear that at one point I'm going to have to introduce him to somebody, and I'm just not going to know his name. Here's
this fella.
Here's this guy.
Here's my neighbor.
Here's my neighbor.
Here's my neighbor on the left.
Yeah.
Ask him about all the mole problems he has. I'm sure that'll go over real well.
Yeah, just call him Lefty.
By the way, who was it? Jodie Foster. Did you see this? I didn't even have this prepared, but I saw not a documentary, but a segment on Jodie Foster.
Okay.
She said Gen Zers are annoying at work.
Did see that.
Did you see that, Johnny?
Yes, I did.
I like Jodie Foster.
I do too. She's cool.
Yeah, she is.
But anyway, she says that Gen Zers, they have terrible punctuation and they can't communicate. I think among other things.
They're very tardy. They're late all the time.
Oh, yeah. They have a terrible work ethic.
Yeah.
What is Mac Maury? Is he Gen Z?
Now,
I'm not implicating Mac.
No,
I'm just asking a question.
He's a good worker.
Is he? What's that, Johnny?
He's a good worker.
Are those 18 to 33s?
Anyone born after 97, I believe.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so now
They're not in the money demo, are they?
What's that, Ken?
Not in the money demo, are they? Because if they are, we love them.
You know what? I love Gen Z.
I freaking love Gen Z.
I think all of these attacks on Gen Z are unwarranted.
I think they are too. By the way, you should be able to show up to work anytime you want.
And there's better things to do with your time than watch a football game for several hours.
That's right.
You can
watch YouTube TV.
Yeah, you can.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN TV.
There you go.
We don't play football.
No, we do not. We don't even tackle each other.
See,
we tackle subjects, but not each other.
That's what. We tackle some subjects.
Yes, some.
We wrestle with them, too.
Yes, we do.
See, but I think, and you know what the other part of that is? I think that one of the reasons why you've got the Gen Zers not into sports is because there's been a big-time slowdown in the younger generation playing sports.
Yes.
Because they want to spend all of their time online. And I've talked about this ad nauseum, so I'm going back like 5 years. But one of the other reasons why a lot of these kids don't play sports anymore is because divorce has split the family. Yep. So you've got, the parents aren't living apart. It's really difficult for everybody to get together for, the games and the practice. And, dad lives 2 counties away with his wife and she's got an ex and you got kids everywhere. And, and I think life is just more complicated and it's easier for kids to just be able to, take their games to the other parent's house, whether it's an Oculus or a Atari game, whatever the heck it is, and whatever they play. And I don't know what they play, but that's what the younger generation is doing. Yeah, make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, and that life gets in the way. That's for sure.
5:53, Ken Weaver, what is coming up in the news?
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about these storms that are rolling in. It ought to be a real nice drive into work tomorrow morning, boys.
All right, so Ken, you got to just give me the over-under real quick. Like, what is supposed to happen in the next day or two?
Well, we're going to go under a wind advisory at 6 for gusts in excess of 50 miles per hour, which will blow trees over and things like that.
Oh, good.
It's going to be raining and heavy at times. So, yeah, that's going to be it. Strong
so if you still
winds and very heavy rain.
If you still have your Christmas inflatables out, your options, you got 2 options.
Yeah.
You either pull them in.
Right.
Or just, kind of lift up the tethers and let the wind take them away.
Absolutely. You could do that and problem solved.
And we'll find out why Dan's left side neighbor isn't talking to him.
Exactly right. All right, I'm sorry, Ken. What else is going on?
Well, the rain may flush out some moles and send them to your neighbor's house.
Yep.
No, other than that, we did have a firefighter hurt in Nashville this morning battling a house fire. A lot of house fires right now. And then the race to the moon, boys. I got an update on that coming up at 6 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
All right, thank you, Ken. 5:55, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Okay, coming up next is and I'm going to air quote this, is the black vote going to completely abandon Joe Biden? I've got that story for you and, excuse me, and a whole lot more straight ahead. It's Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
6 o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Storms are going to roll into Middle Tennessee tonight. Strong winds, heavy rainfall, the main concern. We'll tell you more during the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Right now in Nashville, Channel 4 says a firefighter was hurt while battling a house fire in West Nashville. Joyland Bukovac says 5 people were in the house at that time.
The Red Cross has been on scene helping the family here, and the Red Cross actually says December and January are peak months for house fires. So this is a good reminder to check your smoke detectors and fire alarms if you haven't done that lately.
Yeah, fortunately, that family is okay. Unfortunately, we are learning of the death of a 5-year-old in a house fire in Cumberland County this morning. Well, way over our heads, the race to the moon is on.
Liftoff, some 50 years after the first American mission to the moon, a new American rocket is on its own giant leap for mankind, launching overnight from Cape Canaveral, marking the first lunar launch from the U.S. since NASA's final Apollo mission. The brand new rocket, the Vulcan, is made by the private space company United Launch Alliance, hoping to jump into the commercial space tourism industry. If all goes according to plan, a small lunar landing will touch down on the moon on February 23rd.
Now, let's mark that down. Derek Dennis reporting. Airlines waiting for instructions from the FAA and Boeing on what inspections their 737 MAX 9 fleets need to undergo to get those planes back in the air after a door plug on an Alaska Airlines MAX 9 popped off 16,000 feet in the air just after takeoff from Portland, Oregon. Here's NTSB Chair Jennifer Homendy telling reporters yesterday.
It was described as chaos, very loud between the air and everything going on around them, and it was very violent when the rapid decompression and the door was expelled out of the plane.
Now, I've got some news about this particular plane. According to Fox News this morning, that plane had been under restrictions, but was still in the air. Market Numbers Report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, beaconcm.com. Here's Jim Ryan.
Stock futures were lower this morning after the major averages kicked off 2024 with a down week. Despite overall losses during the holiday-shortened week, the major averages pulled off gains Friday. The Dow added 26 points and headed into the weekend at 37,466. A busy week lies ahead for investors. Earnings results are on the way from J.P. Morgan Chase and Bank of America, as well as Delta Airlines and United Healthcare Group. Boeing faces new scrutiny after part of a door on an Alaska Airlines 737 MAX 9 blew out in flight, causing explosive decompression. The FAA is grounding the MAX 9 and ordering inspections. Alaska Airlines has canceled another 60 flights today. Watch for Nintendo to release its new Switch console this year, as the gaming giant works to capitalize on the renewed popularity of characters like Zelda and Mario. Nintendo has sold 132 million Switch units since the device was launched in 2017.
All right, checking futures ahead of this morning's opening bell on Wall Street. Dow futures down 153, S&P down 4, NASDAQ is flat. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
We talk news. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
608 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome on in along with Johnny B. Ken Weaver. Dan Mandis here. Elise Stefanik, I was during the news. I'm watching this video of Elise Stefanik, and she is absolutely roasting Kirsten Welker on a number of different issues over the weekend on Meet the Press. I do have some of that audio, but if you haven't seen it, man, you've got to find it because there is... Let me play... I'm going to get back to the James Clyburn stuff as far as the race peddling that is going on in this country. But let me play for you real quick, John. I need some audio. And then we're going to get into what in the world happened to Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, where he's gone for like days, and nobody in the White House knows that he's in the hospital. So we'll get to that as well. But I do want to get to this. This is Elise Stefanik, and she and Kirsten Welker are going back and forth. And I'm going to let the question of Kirsten Welker speak for itself.
Would you vote to certify, and will you vote to certify the results of the 2024 election, no matter what they show?
What a dumb question. So Kirsten Welker thinks it's an appropriate question to ask Elise Stefanik because realize that the left has nowhere to go when it comes to talking points for 2024. They've got nowhere to go. There's a great meme out there this morning, Truth in Memes. 3 words, Build Back Better. It's a big billboard. It says Build Back Better. Of course, that is a big motto of Joe Biden. And surrounding the billboard, wherever, as far as the eyes can see, there is a tent city right there in the middle of this huge area where it is represented by a billboard that says Build Back Better. In other words, the Democrats have nothing to talk about and nothing to campaign on except old news like what happened on January 6th. And so for Kirsten Welker, she is asking Elise Stefanik, will you vote to certify the election? No, I think she said no matter who wins or no matter what happens. What a dumb question by Kirsten Welker. We have absolutely no idea what we are in for heading into 2024 or what's going to happen in November. No idea. And so I tweeted that out and I said, well, I would ask the Democrats the same thing. See, that's my point. If I'm Elise Stefanik, and I will play you her audio, because she absolutely dunked on Kirsten Welker. But one of the things that I would ask Kirsten Welker is, will you accept the results of the 2024 election? That'd be my question. Because remember, Joe Biden, as I've mentioned to you many times, he had hired 400 election attorneys just in case he lost. So here's the rest of that dialogue.
Would you vote to certify, and will you vote to certify the results of the 2024 election, no matter what they show?
Well, I voted not to certify the state of Pennsylvania because, as we saw in Pennsylvania and other states across the country, that there was unconstitutional acts circumventing the state legislature and unilaterally changing election law.
What about 2024? What about 2024?
We will see if this is a legal and valid election. What we're seeing so far is that Democrats are so desperate, they're trying to remove President Trump from the ballot. That is a suppression of the American people, and the Supreme Court is taking that case up in February. That should be a 9-0 to allow President Trump to appear on the ballot, because that's the American people's decision to make this November.
And the matter is, of course, halted pending that appeal, as you say. But just to be very clear, I don't hear you committed to certifying the election results. Will you only commit to certify the results if
they're
President Trump
constitutional
wins?
See, that's what is so infuriating, is that, number one, she's trying to put words into Elise Stefanik's mouth. That's number one. But number two, she's trying to make hay out of the fact that Elise Stefanik is basically saying if it's a free and fair and credible election where there's no election fraud, then sure, I'm sure that Elise Stefanik will certify the election. But if there's a bunch of stuff in there that looks really suspicious, and this is what the Republicans wanted to do after the election of 2020. In Michigan, for example, you had all these people trying to make a big deal out of the fact that Trump and Ronna McDaniel both said, okay, don't certify just yet, Wayne County, because we need to look at these results and we need to look at, all of this and ask for an audit, which is something that they are allowed to do. And so for Kirsten Welker, you can tell that what she's trying to do is she's trying to sort of pigeonhole Elise Stefanik into this conversation where then the headlines will be that the Republicans are unwilling to certify the 2024 election if Joe Biden wins. That's obviously what she's trying to do. And you know what? I like the fact that Elise Stefanik is not cowering. I like the fact that she is exhibiting, as some people have called this, sort of muscular conservatism, where Elise Stefanik will say, well, no, I won't certify it if there's a bunch of stuff that looks, quite frankly, suspicious, and neither would you, Kirsten Welker. So I don't think that the Republicans should be on their heels at all about this, because what they're trying to do is the Democrats are trying to, sort of shame the Republicans into saying, yeah, certify the 2024 election. Like heck they will. If there's stuff that looks suspicious, why should they? And again, the fundamental phrase should be any Republican that is asked that question needs to just go right back and say, will you, if Donald Trump wins? Or DeSantis or Haley or whoever it might be.
Does that mean if former President Trump
No,
wins?
it means if they are constitutional. What we saw in 2020 was unconstitutional circumventing of the Constitution, not going through state legislatures when it comes to changing election law. And we're seeing.
And by the way, one of the things that I would also say is Donald Trump over the last couple of days, I tweeted this out in case you missed it. Trump is now released on Truth Social. He's gone through, Georgia and Arizona and Michigan, and he's gone through all of the very suspicious findings as it relates to election fraud in the 2020 election. Now, I'm just going to tell you, I have not read all of it. And some of this stuff are things that we knew, and some of it is things that we did not know. But if you want a good recap, a good primer of all that happened in 2020, go check out, me on X. It's at Dan Mandis Show at 6:15. Time to check the roads from the Paul Winkler Investment WTN Traffic Center. Increasing clouds and rain by this afternoon, a high of 52. Going to be a rough morning tomorrow. Listen up for the complete forecast coming up with Ken Weaver at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Right now, it is 28 degrees. So there's a number of storylines that are out there. And by the way, Matthew Hurt is going to be joining us at 6:35. Going to talk about all of this because the news is like a fire hose this morning, my friends, which is why I love my job. Now, one other headline among several. Is the black vote going to completely abandon Joe Biden? Now, you've got James Clyburn, and I played a little bit of this audio earlier. And one of the reasons why they're rolling out Clyburn, and he's sounding, can I just tell you, he's sounding a lot like Joe Biden lately. Senator out of South Carolina. And so with Clyburn, the situation is that he is talking about, of course, Joe Biden, and he's talking about Donald Trump. And the thing that I find absolutely horrendous is Clyburn, you remember, the Trump statements where he said, there's good people on both sides. You remember that comment from 2015 that has been, debunked time and time and time again. Well, here's the deal, is that as you look at everything that's going on in the world today, you still have the likes of James Clyburn trying to sort of glom onto that comment that Donald Trump made and still try to go through all of this race baiting that the Democrats are involved in, because that clearly is what this is about. And so now he's on with, I think this was on CNN, Jake Tapper. He was on with Jake Tapper. And so if you listen closely to what he says, Jim Clyburn says, he's trying to tie Donald Trump to that horrific shooting in June of 2015 by invoking that, again, debunked good people on both sides argument that Donald Trump said in 2017. So this is, just listen very closely.
Of Charlottesville ties him to what happened at Mother Emanuel. Donald Trump looked at those people in Charlottesville and said that there were good people on both sides. And those people were uttering things like, Jews will not replace us. That is a religion. The AME Church, Emmanuel, that is religion. And Donald Trump has said things in support of those activities that ties him closely to what happened at Mother Emanuel.
Well, but it doesn't. That's the thing. I'm trying to figure out how Clyburn is trying to do this, tie Trump to these shootings where 9 people were tragically killed there again in South Carolina by a white supremacist guy walks in and he kills 9 black folks and injured 1 more. But he's trying to tie Trump to that, but you can't, because that shooting happened in 2015. Trump's comments about good people on both sides happened 2 years later in 2017. So to imply that somehow Trump inspired this is beyond disgusting. And by the way, as again, everybody knows, that 2 sides comment has been debunked and fact-checked many times by even the Washington Post. So it is clear that with Tapper, rolling out Clyburn, the Democrats are clearly in panic mode because Donald Trump is doing very well with the black voters and Joe Biden, not so much. You've got Trump that is gaining ground and Joe Biden is losing ground. And so today you've got Biden returning to South Carolina, and his message will be divisive. And he's going to go out there and he's going to do what we saw over the weekend. I think it was Friday when you had Biden's big speech where Trump is a threat to democracy. And as I said in the 5 o'clock hour, 32 minutes of Joe Biden saying and focusing on everything Donald Trump did not mention one accomplishment, not one, that Joe Biden has over the past 3 years. Here is more from James Clyburn.
Well, I'm not worried. I'm very concerned. My problem is that we have not been able to break through that MAGA wall in order to get to people exactly what this president has done.
So he's, I guess, trying to say that Biden has been unable to break through that MAGA wall, as he says, to explain to people what accomplishments Joe Biden has. Well, I don't understand what it means by that, because it's the media. I mean, if you're complaining about, because the Biden administration has complained about the media not reporting on Biden's accomplishments, is Clyburn trying to say that the mainstream media and the networks are part of the MAGA wall? If that's what he's trying to say, he's losing it. He really is, because clearly the media is not part of the MAGA agenda. As a matter of fact, it's against, as passionately as they possibly can, they're against the MAGA wall. So I'm not sure what he means by that whole thing. Clyburn, again, I think that he's losing it. But yeah, the question was, are you worried that Biden is losing support among the black community? And yeah, he says, yes, I am. So that's part of this interview with James Clyburn. And it sounds like he is saying that Biden has done a lot for the American people, and I assuming the black community as well. But clearly, Joe Biden has not. So when he says
that MAGA wall, in order to get to people exactly what this president has done.
What has Joe Biden done for the black community? I guess that's what I would want to know. I mean, this interview itself was evidence because Tapper allowed Clyburn to go on and talk about all of this without no fact check of Charlottesville, or tell Clyburn, well, that comment in all of the additional context that the mainstream media has given, the president was woefully taken out of context when Joe Biden used it to launch his campaign in 2020. And so that's how you know that you've got the Democrats, and they are absolutely in panic mode. And listen, it's not real surprising given what we've seen. I mean, everybody knows what is going on with the polling, where the black community is not supporting Joe Biden nearly as much as they were in 2020. Well, that is a fact, and the reason for that is the failing policies of Joe Biden. Ken Weaver, what's coming up in the news?
Well, we're going to detail the two weather makers on the way to Middle Tennessee. Got a southern border security update. Going to report on a deadly house fire. Governor Bill Lee's comments ahead of the General Assembly opening tomorrow. And the Good Samaritan scam alert. Details at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken. 6:24 on Nashville's Morning News. Dan Mandis here with a question for you. If your roof was destroyed in a storm, like we got a big high winds and storm coming tomorrow, what if your roof was destroyed in that storm or any other storm? How much of that replacement cost would your insurance company cover? Now, if you don't know, you really do need to ask, because some insurance companies refuse to pay full replacement cost. They'll deduct money for an older roof. Now, this means that the insurance company will depreciate how much they pay for your roof claim. And in turn, that's going to leave you on the hook for thousands of dollars. Now, my friends at King & Associates Insurance will pay full replacement cost. That's right. King & Associates will pay full replacement cost. So whether you have to replace a 10-year-old roof or a 2-year-old roof, they will pay it for it to be replaced, period. Now, it is that kind of focus on customer service that makes King & Associates Insurance one of the best insurance companies around. So you've got to call them at 615-329-8121, 615-329-8121. As always, tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out and get your royal review at tkinginsurance.com.
For many of us, generators are becoming a must-have household appliance. From unpredictable weather to surprise outages, it's better to be safe than sorry. Generator Supercenter of Nashville offers fast and easy installations with 24/7 service and monitoring to all brands of generators and expert repairs done right. Our mission is to make owning a backup generator simple and easy. Visit your local store today or check us out online. Generator Supercenter of Nashville. We serve all Middle Tennessee.
Hey folks, I'm Paul Winkler. One of the things I've been hearing a lot from people lately is the concern about the dollar crashing. And you'll see this out there on the internet all over the place, articles written about it. And the idea is that the Russian and Chinese, those countries are looking at getting together and creating their own currency that will compete against the US dollar as a reserve currency. Now, for many, many decades, there have been other currencies that have been trying to vie for that status. And there's a possibility that you're going to have some that are going to encroach on that a little bit. But is it that big of a thing to worry about? Well, number one, last year, the Chinese currency made up very little of any kind of world trade, number one. But what is it that's really going on underneath the surface? A lot of it is trying to sell you newsletters and investments that you probably ought to stay away from. For example, one of the things I see is, well, you ought to buy gold because the dollar's going to crash. And you see all of these commercials out there, and I say, well, wait a minute, wait. They're trying to get you to buy gold with your what? They're looking to take your dollars. If they really believe what they're saying, why would they take your dollars for their gold? Number one. Number two, how do you protect yourself against these valuation changes in various currencies? Well, let me explain it this way. Let's say that you had a currency called the clam. Okay, and you had a country that had one clam and you could exchange it for $1 at any one point in time. Let's say that that's the case. And you had a widget that was sold by this country and you could buy that widget in that country for one clam. So you take your $1, you exchange it for a clam, and then you got your widget. Now, what if the dollar weakens? Well, what happens, now this clam is the same, right? Nothing different here. It's the same deal. But instead of $1, now it takes $2 to get the clam. Now, what happened? Your widget just doubled in price from your perspective as an American. Well, how do we use this to our advantage? As an investor, we want to make sure that we don't just myopically only focus on U.S. stocks. And that's a big mistake investors made from 2000 through 2010 and other periods in history, in the 1970s, the late 1980s, and so on and so forth. What we want to do is we want to make sure that we have good international diversification, because if the dollar weakens, then those international investments go up in value. So it's very, very important to know how globally diversified you really are as an investor. You want to learn more? Call us up for a free 15-minute consultation at paulwinkler.com.
Hey, if you want to start the new year off with a super clean carpet, call my friends at Zero Res. They are the company I trust with my carpets, and you can too. Now, they don't use any harsh soaps or chemicals, and that means no residue is left behind. All that is left behind is soft, fluffy carpets, and your surfaces are going to dry twice as fast as well. Now, by the way, with cold and flu season here, it is more important than ever to keep those carpets clean, because Zero Res can get rid of all those cold and allergy-causing bacteria and germs that live in your carpet and gets you and your family sick. So protect your family and your pets with Zero Res, a smarter, lasting clean. And right now for the month of January, a great deal where you can get 3 rooms of carpets cleaned for only $109, and you get $50 off of air duct cleaning as well when you mention my name. A great deal from my friends at Zero Res. Restrictions may apply. Call them 615-535-9376, 615-535-9376. Book online, ZeroResNashville.com.
.30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Heavy downpours starting tonight. The full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Right now, let's get a southern border security update from Jim Ryan.
Customs and Border Protection had been processing about 1,500 asylum seekers daily at the end of 2023. And El Paso Deputy City Manager Mario D'Agostino says the figure is down to about 600.
When you start seeing those numbers trend back down, it gives the teams time to refresh, to focus and see what the new numbers are going to bring.
With a decline in new arrivals, El Paso has been able to close the emergency shelter in a disused middle school and can be reopened with just a few hours' notice.
Now, last month, Mexico said they were going to start stepping up immigration enforcement policies, such as flying migrants from the north of the country to more southern regions. Here in Tennessee, TBI is investigating after a 5-year-old died in a house fire in Cumberland County. The child's 38-year-old mother was life-flighted to the hospital. Meanwhile, here in Nashville, the Red Cross is helping a family of 5 whose home caught fire overnight in Sylvan Park. Firefighter apparently hurt battling that fire due to heat exhaustion. The General Assembly reconvenes tomorrow at noon, and Channel 4 says Governor Bill Lee hopes there is less tension this session.
It's very important that the state and the city operate and work together. And I've met with Mayor, and we've talked about the importance of working together going forward. Whatever's happened in the past is the past, but working forward together.
Some of the topics to be debated during the General Assembly: school vouchers, flag bans in schools, gun laws, a safety alert about a scam affecting some grocery shoppers. Channel 4 says in a Nextdoor post, a Nashville woman claims someone followed her inside a store and asked her to buy their groceries. The Better Business Bureau calls it the Good Samaritan scam. It's when someone takes advantage of your generosity and then returns the items for your money that you paid for them. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Thank you, Ken. 6:33, Nashville's Morning News. I am so happy that I'm starting 2024 off on the right track with Awaken 180. I know that it's a holiday tradition to put some pounds on, but because I've learned the right way to eat with Awaken 180, my body is trained to eat the right way no matter the time of year. I didn't need to make any New Year's resolutions to lose weight because I've been working with Awaken 180 since last spring. And I've lost my 20 pounds, and I've been able to keep it off the right way, as I like to say, the Awaken 180 way. Now, the people that I know that are also on Awaken 180, that's going to be Belle, of course, and Pamela, too. We've all hit our goals, and you will, too. Now, I remember when food used to have control over me, but these days it is the other way around. And the power that you feel is just amazing to finally be able to take control of your life. So do what we did here at WTN and thousands of others across Tennessee and America and discover the Awaken 180 difference. We've all succeeded, and you will too. But that first reach out is on you. Find Awaken 180 online. As always, tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out. Awaken 180, it's awaken180weightloss.com. That is awaken180weightloss.com. 6:38, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Dan Mandis here along with Johnny B. Ken Weaver. Matthew Hurt, a grassroots political analyst, is joining us as well. Matthew, happy Monday to you. So we've got this audio from Joe Biden, big speech, and he's kicking off his 2024 campaign. And this was 32 minutes. And I've got just one piece of audio that really does serves as an example of the overriding theme, obviously, of the entire speech.
Today, we're here to answer the most important of questions. Is democracy still America's sacred cause? I mean it.
And, it's interesting, Matthew, because this whole speech, it was like 32 minutes long. And he didn't mention, of course, we know why, but he didn't mention one accomplishment of his own. It was 100% about Donald Trump.
Well, Dan, it's great to be with you. And look, democracy is on the ballot in 2024. In a number of states, Democrats have already tried to remove Donald Trump from the ballot. It's clear that Joe Biden is going to use a campaign of fear and division to further divide the American people. And as I've said on this program before, elections are either about hope and opportunity in the future, or they're about the past. And it is clear that Joe Biden is going to scare up his base in an effort to go toe-to-toe against the presumptive nominee or the eventual nominee. And if it's Donald Trump, this is certainly going to be the messaging for the Democrats. You heard it with Jim Clyburn, and they're worried. Barack Obama and Jim Clyburn both, and others, I'm sure, are sounding the alarm bells for Joe Biden because it just isn't working right now. This messaging just isn't working. I think a lot of Americans want to get past it, and they want to talk about what is great about this country.
Yeah, you talk about Biden. One of the sound bites that I have, I won't bore you with it now, but he actually says Donald Trump is obsessed with the past. Clearly, it's the Democrats who are obsessed with the past. And Congressman Clyburn, I was playing some audio from him earlier, and he was on there talking about, and this is one of the things that people are discussing this morning, is where he talked about how Joe Biden is unable to break through the MAGA wall. This is that comment.
Well, I'm not worried. I'm very concerned. My problem is that we have not been able to break through that MAGA wall in order to get to people exactly what this president has done.
Trying to figure, first of all, this was not one of his better interviews. The congressman, I'm going to tell you, he just sounds a lot like Biden, to be perfectly candid. But the question is that you've got Clyburn, who is blaming this MAGA wall, and it's that MAGA wall is the reasoning why they have not been able to let people know how good Joe Biden has done. I'm trying to understand the reasoning, because is he talking about the media? Is he talking about the Republicans in the House? Who is he talking about?
Well, the American people are not thinking about this in these terms. And this MAGA wall is, your listeners who have a Democrat neighbor or somebody they go to church with who may be on the other side, they probably experience a little bit of Trump derangement syndrome. And what we see with Clyburn and others is that to just a ridiculous and hyperbolic degree. These conversations taking place among consultants for the Democrats are just some of the most outrageous conversations you probably would never hear. Most Americans are looking at these issues as kitchen table issues. Yep. They want to put food on the table, they want to be able to pay their mortgage, and they want to save for retirement and put their kids into good schools where the teachers and administrators aren't indoctrinating their children. And so the reason Democrats haven't broken through this quote-unquote MAGA wall is because most Americans aren't thinking about the election in these terms or their lives in these terms. I think that what we're going to see as we move into Iowa next week and beyond and through the summer is Americans thinking about these, again, in very real terms. How does this impact my life? Unfortunately, for your listeners, Washington has an outsized influence in our lives now. Government tends to be what we do to the people who lost the last election, and so it is seen as sort of it's a weapon or a bludgeon. And the Democrats know that almost more than any other group. We saw in 2020 the violent riots in the summer. We've seen their messaging and their efforts. It is very clear that winning an election is the most important thing to Democrats, because then they get to punish those people who lost the election, and that is the listeners to this program and the Republicans in Congress.
Well, luckily, the listeners to this program, they're very politically astute. They know what's going on. They know what Biden's doing. My worry is that just like in 2020, Biden comes along and Charlemagne, is out there now saying that he regrets supporting Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. But, when you look at Biden's track record in 2020 and what he said during that Charlemagne interview where he said, if you don't know if you're going to vote for me or Trump, then you ain't black. This is one of those moments where you look at Charlemagne, and I talked about this on Thursday or Friday, and I said, well, no crap, Sherlock. You knew this was going to happen in 2020, and you had Donald Trump, who actually had a track record of helping the black community. Yet Charlemagne and other influential voices in the black community convinced folks to go ahead and vote for Joe Biden, and now they've got Biden regret syndrome. One of the things that I thought was interesting, and I played this audio earlier, and Matthew Hurt is joining us, our grassroots political analyst. So you have all of these folks in the media trying to make 2024 about 2020, and I love this interview with Elise Stefanik, and she was being interviewed, and she's being asked about 2020, and she's being asked about her not voting to certify Pennsylvania.
Would you vote to certify, and will you vote to certify the results of the 2024 election, no matter what they show?
Well, I voted not to certify the state of Pennsylvania because, as we saw in Pennsylvania and other states across the country, that there was unconstitutional acts circumventing the state legislature and unilaterally changing election law.
What about...
And so, and I played the entire audio bite earlier, but one of the things that I like about that interview with Elise Stefanik and Kirsten Welker is that Stefanik she's not on her heels. I mean, she is like, leaning into what happened in 2020. And I think that that's actually a pretty smart move and a dumb question by Kirsten Welker, because there's no way that anybody should just unilaterally say, oh, yeah, no matter what happens in 2024, we'll go ahead and certify. No, because strange things happen during elections.
You made a stronger point before the break, and you're right about Elise Stefanik. She did go on offense. I think that should be the question. If a reporter asks a Republican member of Congress or a consultant, will you support certifying the election or will you certify the election? The question is, will you support certifying the election? And we saw, Hillary Clinton call into question the election results. We see the 2000 election in Bush v. Gore. We see Hakeem Jeffries in the House rejected the 2016 election results. And so this isn't something that is unique to Republicans who have legitimate questions about how bureaucrats change the process. And we could argue about election fraud and ballot harvesting and all of that, but in certain states, and Pennsylvania is chief among them, unelected bureaucrats change the rules in the middle of the game, which is not how we administer elections in this country. And so in a place like Pennsylvania, it is legitimate to ask a question about the election results. And I think it's a silly premise for a left-wing activist journalist to begin with, but great for Elise Stefanik, and more Republicans should go on offense on this and allow the American people to cast their ballot, and then to not change the rules in the middle of the game. You can't switch election processes or move administrative factors of an election while people are already voting. And in my state of Virginia, we're voting in 10 days. We've got early voting just around the corner for our Super Tuesday election. And so it would be imprudent at best and malicious at the worst for Democrat politicians, for secretaries of state, or for their unelected bureaucrats to start changing or meddling with these rules as the election is playing out.
Matthew, hold on. Got to check the roads from the Paul Winkler Investment WTN Traffic Center. Increasing clouds, rain by this afternoon, a high of 52 today, right now 28. Heavy rain overnight and into tomorrow morning. Matthew Hurt is joining us, our grassroots political analyst on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So there was a report in The Hill, Matthew, that as we head into Iowa, that Ron DeSantis, if he does not do well in Iowa, that he's going to drop out. Now, you have the DeSantis camp vehemently denying that. What say you?
You know, I think I just looked at the polling numbers, and I'll be in Iowa for the caucus next week. I think Ron DeSantis is likely the second-place candidate in Iowa, which is a strong position for a Republican candidate. It doesn't look like Nikki Haley is going to break through. The events over the weekend were a stark contrast. Donald Trump is still far ahead, but he's taken a little bit of time to get out of the gate and show up in Iowa, and voters in Iowa, New Hampshire, and to a certain extent South Carolina expect a lot more retail politics from candidates and their surrogates. I do think that anonymous comments from quote-unquote donors or supporters to media outlets, it fuels a narrative. I don't know the motivations of those individuals. I don't think we're going to see Ron DeSantis drop out after Iowa, but it remains to be seen. And I think as we go to New Hampshire and South Carolina and Nevada where Nikki Haley is not participating in the party-sanctioned nominating contest, which is a sort of a caucus or a convention process, we'll see what happens. I don't think it's going to be after Iowa, but I do think that he definitely has to overperform in Iowa to change the narrative of his sort of flailing campaign that we see playing out in the press.
In the news today, congressional leaders reach a $1.6 trillion deal. They call this top-line spending. And so basically what they agreed to, and this is the House and the Senate, so Mike Johnson in the Republican-led House and Schumer in the Senate. And so they've agreed to spend $1.6 trillion. So now the appropriations process begins. But weren't they supposed to do this where they had all of the different appropriations that were going to be handled individually, and then, that was the whole thing with Kevin McCarthy. And then that's how they were going to fund these different agencies. Instead, I mean, I don't know about you, and I could be wrong on this, but $1.6 trillion here. Now you figure out how to spend it. I mean, that kind of sort of sounds like an omnibus spending bill, but I'm sure there's some differences. Why are they doing this?
Yeah, Congress has abdicated its budgetary responsibilities. Previously, and this is years ago, Congress would have an appropriations process. They would produce a budget. It would go through, of course, start in the House, which is the constitutional place where the budget process begins, and then it would go to the president. And it seems, regardless of who the Speaker of the House is, be it Nancy Pelosi or McCarthy or now Speaker Mike Johnson, we are budgeting from crisis to crisis and further relinquishing the responsibility of Congress to make those budgetary decisions. And it is this is a make or break activity for the Speaker. The last time we spoke about Speaker Johnson back, I think in December, conservatives, the shine hadn't yet worn off, but now we see people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and others who are criticizing him as essentially doing the same thing as Kevin McCarthy or as anybody else. This is something that the American people have to sit down and write out their family budget, and it is unconscionable for Republicans or Democrats in Congress to relinquish the responsibility given to them by the Constitution and create this crisis budgeting process where essentially now when we get to the point where you vote on a spending bill, you have to spend it because everything is in it. And if you don't vote for it, you're not voting for our troops. You're not voting for some program and some special interest group attacks you in your primary. And it's really just an unfortunate situation that we're in. And we really need leaders, statesmen in the Republican Party who will stand up and say, this is not how the process should be. And we should not do this going forward, and we should hold our own side accountable. Unfortunately for Republicans, and this isn't a problem for Democrats in the House, is that we do have moderates up in the Northeast and in other places who will peel off. And now we have, a one-seat majority for Republicans in the House, and it becomes now nearly impossible to lose a vote within the Republican conference and still get something out of the House. So and Democrats are never going to side with Republicans when it comes down to one or two votes. And the Democrats, when they budget, they are lockstep in alignment with one another. Nancy Pelosi had the strongest whip operation, and that is to say she was able to keep her members in line, and the Democrats just don't peel off like Republicans do. I do think that's a function of our philosophy as individuals rather than the collective. we have individual members of Congress who vote one way or another, not necessarily based on how the conference will vote. And that's a good thing on some issues, but certainly it makes it intensely more difficult to stay focused and stay principled on something like this budget.
And the battle continues. Matthew, how do people find you on X?
I'm on X at Matthew Hurt, MatthewHurtt, and now on Substack as of last week, writing pretty regularly about these issues.
All right. Thank you, Matthew. Have a great week. We'll check in with you soon. And most certainly, as you are in Iowa next week, it is 6:53 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. The Super Text line is open, 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. Would love to hear from you. And Ken Weaver, what is coming up in the news at 7 o'clock?
It's going to be a very active weather week ahead. We've had some devastating house fires overnight and over the weekend here in Nashville and Tennessee. Shots were fired at a bus stop this weekend. Big issues to be debated at the General Assembly starting tomorrow. And part of a plane popped off midair. Did you hear about that? Also, there's a new race to the moon. These stories and more at 7 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you very much, Ken. It's 6:54. So many of us deal with things like concussions, sports injuries, Lou Gehrig's disease, and autism as well. Well, there is good news now, whether it is you or a loved one suffering, there is now a cutting-edge treatment available for you from my friends at the Kellum Stem Cell Institute. Listen, these folks have been helping you for a long time. So if you are suffering from any one of those, maybe asthma, arthritis, congestive heart failure, lung issues, call this number, 615-850-4415. Tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out. You're going to get that free consultation, 615-850-4415. Now, they are experts in helping you. Now, what they do, Dr. Ethan Kellum, he specializes in the harvesting of and then the redeploying of your own stem cells to attack inflammation in your body, and in turn, your body is going to heal. Now, this is your body providing your cells and your solutions, and Dr. Ethan Kellum can help you today. The Kellum Stem Cell Institute, Kellum, KellumStemCellInstitute.com. Your body, your cells, your solutions.